Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner. This is a very exciting episode in how we use AI in our day-to-day lives. I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on December 12th, 2025. Kris. Almost at the year end, and we're finishing up strong with this year. And here we are again with another amazing episode talking about AI, software development, business use, and the future of business with AI. With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Matt Strippelhoff. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good, fellas. How you doing?
Very well, very well. Yeah. Nice to see you again. It's been a while, and I feel like the world has changed in that short while.
We talked about that last time. It's like, for a short period of time, a lot has changed.
That's exactly what we said. Who knows where the world would be with this in a few short months? And here we are, a few short months later. The world is still here, but man, what a whirlwind it has been. And I saw something this morning too. I think it was a year ago today that the concept of agents was introduced, I believe.
Yeah, it seems like just yesterday.
It does, but it's look at everything that's happened since then. It does seem like just yesterday, but look at all the advances in technology that have happened since then. So.
Oh yeah, and I know I was excited about all the AI first SDLC modeling work we're doing at Red Hawk, and we talked about that. And it's great to see you guys. By the way, I'm excited to be back on your podcast. We had a blast last time. So.
Absolutely.
The progress we made is just it's insane. Like, I'll give you an example. Since we're talking about agentic and agents, we have successfully developed, deployed into production, and now have automated agentic workflow that handles the software bill of materials, detects common vulnerabilities and exposures in those libraries and packages, and automates remediation all the way up to the pull request.
Wow.
So that stuff, like the software engineers, I describe that as doing the dishes. You know what software engineers want to do? They don't want to do the dishes. I don't want to do the dishes. You guys
no.
You know what I mean? So we've automated.
You can prep the meal. Don't want to do dishes, man.
I don't want to prep the meal. I just want to show up and enjoy it. But hey, that's
yes, that's it. It's before we get into that, because there's a lot. I don't even know where to begin with this, because knowing what you guys do over at Red Hawk, and from the conversation last time, I wanted to get your take on a few things. But before we get in that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Matt Strippelhoff, CEO, co-founder, Red Hawk Technologies. We are a software consultancy. We develop, support, maintain custom business applications, that takes a variety of forms. It can be agentic workflows, like middleware solutions that sit in between systems. We used to call that middleware, but now we're calling it agentic workflows because AI is a big part of that flow. But we also develop a lot of custom field service applications. They might be web portals, mobile applications, things of that nature. Our primary focus is serving fast-growing or growth-oriented, privately owned mid-market businesses. And what a great time to be doing it. Because a few months ago, guys, I was like, maybe a year ago, so what's AI going to do to my industry?
Yeah.
But man,
a lot now.
I am speechless with what AI is doing to the industry, and some of the stuff that I have seen firsthand since our last conversation. It comes up to, I had some text messages this morning with some peers and individuals, and my question to them was, who writes code? It's just like, if you think about that, it's come to the point where the amount of code that you write, in my opinion, is what I wanted to see in your from your perspective, what you're doing within your organization and maybe some of the other peers that you may have.
Yeah.
I see there's a shift from the development cycle. And again, it's not global. I mean, I've talked to some developers who haven't even used it yet, and I've talked to some developers who use it all the time. So I'm not going to say that this is what everybody's doing, but there's I think generally, if you haven't started using it yet, I'd be a little concerned. And if you are all in, great. A lot of people are still in that journey of ramping up, or in what I call like sort of in the middle still, right? So you have the extremes, and then you have the I'm still dabbling with it,
Baby
a little bit
steps.
more than the autocomplete, right? Because everybody has that. You have that cycle of you start working with AI and it just becomes, as somebody that we talk with, Tina Sarah said, it's like a fancy autocomplete, right? And then you progress up to a little bit more. Then you start working with agents, and talking to the agent, saying, "Okay, do this." And then you start getting into this real workflow of no. Then you start creating instruction files, agent files, and then you have multiple agents running in the background. So it's you get all the way up there, but. To bring that back to the thought of it is how much coding. Oh, okay. This is where it was. How much coding do you see being done? And I want to, from the development point of view, that's being done by the developer versus the AI. And of that, how much of it is more a slight adjustment of code versus all out coding?
So I'm going to frame my response based on two different types of projects. You've got production, large scale applications that you got a product roadmap and you're kind of building things out and you're evolving that solution. The percentage of code being generated by AI is at this point kind of a guess on my part, but maybe 50-50, maybe, where the software engineer is primarily focused on being the orchestrator and the architect, and providing the appropriate level of context in order to get the intended outcomes. That's really where they need to focus their expertise now. When we're doing net new builds, it's probably more 80-20, where the agent's doing 80% of the coding. And the work that's being done is for example, we have 8 high fidelity proof of concept projects that we're executing right now that we will wrap up by the end of December. And the suite of AI tools that we're using are allowing us to we're only doing 20% of the coding on those.
Wow.
And all the front end's going to be done, by the way, as far as these proof of concepts go. And then when it's time for the back end, when you start building out the context and putting together your plans, you can use AI to help with the planning. And depending on the systems that you're going to be integrating with, like a Dynamics CRM, et cetera, or maybe it's Azure AI, and we've got a number of those types of projects going on. You're going to include MCP servers in that mix, which provides additional context that's necessary for the AI tools to do the plans. And the way tokenization's working now with these tools, they can handle a significant more amount of context. And that was really the issue with these tools early on, is they start to lose track because they can only handle so much through tokenization, they can only retain so much context at any given point in time. And you start to get further and further and further away from the original strategic objective. Well, now your detailed project requirements documentation is part of that context. Everything that you've done to that point is part of that context, and your MCP servers are part of that context. So we're seeing more and more of the actual syntax being written by AI.
It's insane. And to hear what you had said is sort of what I wanted to talk about. You unpacked a lot in there. You mentioned a lot of them. We have to kind of unpack it.
Okay.
So first, now with the context, the tokenization, you have a larger number of tokens, right, that you have within your context. Mm-hmm. Now, I've just finished reading the book Vibe Coding by Stephen Yigi, and geez, I can't forget the other author. I don't even know if I said his last name properly, but that's what I do. And they summed up what a token is perfectly, because that's the first question a lot of people have that may or may not understand it. And it's a token's not a word, a token's not a character. It's really how they break down words. And they said, on average, you can figure it's like 4 characters is a token, I believe, right? So when you're thinking the counting of tokens in your context, it's a certain number of characters, basically. And then they piece those together. I don't know how it does all that stuff, but it pieces it together like magic, and it spits stuff out for you. So now you can have a larger context, and this is where be able to create those instruction files, or to have a lot of that information already available for the model to use, or your agent. I don't even know what to call it. I tell you, I feel like they're people, because I found myself the other day saying thank you that was good. I'm like, okay, why did I just write that?
You're welcome.
I literally wrote, thank you, that was good. Now can we, add this to it? It's just, it becomes sort of natural with it. So that's changed a lot. We can talk about MCP service, but you started talking about something more about software engineers, and that's where I was sort of going with where they are in the roads. It's where do you see the role of, I'll use the word developer generically here. You have software engineers, you have different titles, but somebody who develops code primarily for a living, where do you see that career trajectory based upon what we know today? And we all know that tomorrow it'll be a whole new world again. So
I think those that adopt the tools learn how to extract the most value from the tools, understand which tools are applicable based on where they are in that from concept all the way through to execution cycle, that SDLC cycle, will be successful. But they got to be willing to lean in and blow up traditional thoughts around software development. You just have to get your hands dirty and get in there. Those who are going to be successful are going to take the time to learn how to bring these tools together to deliver really what their job is to solve problems for their customers. So if they can shift their mindset to the intended business outcome and just recognize that their value is not attached to how much syntax they write in their code, that's the first thing you have to do, is just make that mental shift and start to recognize that really their contribution is the solution, not the how they get to the solution. So I think back, there's all kinds of other examples of advancements in technology. It's just happened much, much slower. And I think last time that we talked, Brad, we talked about a nail gun for a carpenter. You got to start using the tools that are available to expedite throughput. At the same time, a nail gun isn't going to make you a carpenter. So you still have to have the skills and the knowledge and the understanding from an architectural standpoint, sustainability standpoint. What's the right way to approach crafting a solution for a customer or specific business outcome that's scalable and sustainable? So we hear a lot of buzz about vibe coding, and you see a lot of really aggressive marketing from tools like Lovable and Replit. And they're saying, you don't need engineers. I built an app that just like Spotify in 30 minutes. That's not what they built. They built a prototype that probably doesn't have any of the architecture in place to actually be sustainable in a commercial environment.
Yeah.
So again, your point, just to pick up what I've heard, is it's not the tool that you use, it's the product that you deliver that becomes important. Yeah. So the role of a developer is shifting to, you still need to understand the code, you still need to understand architecture and design, but you're just going to use different tools to deliver the solution.
Yeah. And we've not successfully been able to just use purely vibe coding in any effort.
Really?
Yes, not all the way through to production. So we're able to use it for rapid prototypes, like high fidelity prototypes. Concept.
Yeah.
But then even then it can get squirrely pretty quick. Like you might only be a couple hours into something and you can't figure out why that calendar selection feature is wonky from a visual standpoint. You're going to tell it over. And this is a specific example I had last week, by the way. I'm trying to get the days of the week to line up over the columns of the weekdays, just on a little calendar selection feature. Didn't matter how many times I tried to get it to correct that formatting issue, and you'd see it write code. Oh yeah, I understand. Very kind to me. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's very complimentary, nice conversation. And it would write code and it would render and say, I fixed it, and it didn't fix it. So ultimately you may find yourself, and this is what our experience has been, is that you connect the source code repository and then you start shifting which tools you're using until you find the tools that are going to give you the best output. And sometimes you're actually in the code. Writing syntax,
yes.
That's that 20%, right? So
yes, no, I think but what I go with that too is, so it's becomes delivering the solution. You're talking about prototyping.
Yeah.
How do you see how do you see it changing in the landscape of business, in the sense that you have software engineers if you're delivering software, but then you also may have some business users or business mindsets that are working with this. Where do you draw the line? Because now theoretically you can have some business users that don't understand code be able to create some of these prototypes, right, for the developer. So if you're working, say, I'm sitting with a customer and we're talking about something quickly and they say, oh, I have this idea. You can basically type up that idea and then create a prototype for them to then deliver over to a software engineer to further refine. So are we getting to the point where we're drawing those individuals closer, right? So before you used to have software engineers and you used to have business, I call them business users, but it's not even maybe, business consultants. And they used to talk to the development group and say, here's what I need. Can you design, develop, give me a prototype for it? They'd have to talk to them. They'd wait a period of time. Mm-hmm. And now it's, okay, I can come up with a prototype as I'm sitting with the customer. It functionally works, right? I mean, again, everything's in scale. It depends on what you're writing and what you're doing. If you want to create, a simple web page that you can enter some fields and save something, I'm sure AI can do most of it, right? Because I've been able to do some of that stuff quickly. If you want to do some other more advanced stuff, again, it's not for the sake of this conversation, it's not a one size fits all when we're talking about situations and scenarios. This is more some cases generalizations because there's always an edge case for everything. But are we bringing those two worlds closer to where a software engineer, instead of being the person that was sitting in the back writing this code, not wanting to talk with anybody, has to become more business consulting aware to be able to talk with business users instead of needing someone to translate it in the middle, and the business users becoming more familiar with technology and the tool because now they can talk to an agent almost like they spoke with a software engineer.
Yes, and I what I would recommend to anybody in the audience that maybe is either in the process of getting an education and investing in developing software development skills is it's as important, if not more important, going forward in this career path to become a business analyst. That's really, because we talked last time, Brad and Kris, I think we were talking about the future, the most popular software programming language is going to be whatever your natural language is. We're pretty much there in a lot of ways. So connecting the subject matter expert, maybe it's a senior leader. Like, for example, I'm working with a CEO at a company currently, and in 2 weeks we turned around a prototype that will expedite their workflow so significantly. His mind was just blown because the way he describes what his business need as a CEO is he's thinking strategic outcome, growth without having to, you want to outsize your growth compared to your operating expense to create that desired margin. CEOs and business leaders are thinking along those lines. How do I scale in a way that's sustainable? And right now, my team is doing a great job, but at this current scale, it's okay that they've got manual workflows and spreadsheets, right? But if you're about to go down the path of stacking on 5-6 companies a year through acquisitions, guess what's not sustainable? Living in spreadsheets, because now you're going to multiply the manual labor and efforts and the issues that come from copy-paste errors, et cetera, through that process. So this is a way for me to kind of come back to answering your question is, it depends on the leader in the organization and their role as to how they're going to describe the business outcome they're trying to get to. And a really good strategically minded analyst is going to be critical in developing custom software applications. Somebody who can have that conversation with the CEO and say, okay, I understand that. Because if you're, in some cases, if you're down at a director level, maybe an operator level, somebody who is adopted the standard operating procedures that are those manual workflows that can be very well documented, by the way, and their personality profile, because as a leader in my organization, we're very aware of personality profiles and where people might fit based on their natural inclinations. Like, what do they like to do? Are they black and white rule followers? If you want black and white rule followers who are just going to adhere to the SOP, and they get really uncomfortable if they're asked to do anything outside of that routine. So if you're talking to somebody at that level and they're defining what they want in the software, you're going to replicate the manual process. It will eliminate probably copy paste errors because you're going to do some level of integration. But is it really going to achieve what the CEO's strategic vision is? Like in this particular example for the CEO I'm working with, he has analysts that can only handle 2 projects per week maximum. And each project takes a significant amount of hours because of the level of research they have to do and the process of which they develop the results and ultimately that deliverable for their customers. That's a major scaling issue for them. And his KPIs for success are going to be, I want them to be able to handle 6 or more projects per week. And
without increasing the expense.
Well, yeah, he's also able to articulate his cost per project, which in conversation with him, and this is another way to think about how AI impacts software engineering with going beyond just things like Cursor, right? Is in the interview process with the CEO, I'm capturing all the conversation in transcripts.
Yep.
Then I'm taking all that information and I'm vibing with an AI tool to create the detailed project requirements document, which I need as context. But I add another step in the process, which is where you get some really strategic outcomes, which is fascinating to me. So I take the PRD, I take all of the artifacts from the client, including their SOP documentation and sample outputs, and the transcripts from my conversation as to what's important to him, what is really the business goal. And I'm going beyond him describing features and functions because we tend as human beings to start with the solution and not the problem. So if you can get somebody in that flow, whether it's a BA or a really strategic-minded software engineer, they need to work with the stakeholders to understand the business problem and desired outcome, and then shift the conversation back to features and functions. But let's use AI to recommend some features and functions based on all that context.
Yeah, that's a great point that you called out because right now I've spoken to different individuals where they're using, and to going back to Brad's question is, will it blur the line? I think it's going to bridge that line between a business analyst in your case and a developer where they have a better understanding, because in between them would be an agent, right? Where an AI would help bridge that gap.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you can take a functional design document, like as you had said, take all that content and put it in this functional design document where a business analyst can vibe code, I guess, to get the concept put in place and have AI help you build a good portion of that. And then when you want to move forward and say, hey, I think this is going to meet our results, that's where it helps with the developer have a better understanding of the results that they're expecting. And so their focus would be, how can I contribute to the result that they're expecting?
Yeah, it gives everybody context as to why we're doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And so
precisely, yeah.
Yeah, so one little example here to tighten this up a little bit for this example I'm sharing with you guys is I took all of that context, and in this example I used a ChatGPT account. No, actually I used Gemini, Gemini 3.0, Red Hawk's account. I put the project requirements document. It was less functional, it was more project specific, which identified all of the types of users, features, functions that they needed. But I combined that with all the transcripts from interviewing the CEO. And then instead of saying, give me prompts I can use in my vibe coding tool to create the prototype, I added a step in the middle. And the step in the middle was, I acknowledged that the tools that we're using are automatically going to create a landing page after you log in. They just are. They have to, if you don't define it, it's just going to make something up. The user logs in, this is what we're going to show them. Generally, it's going to be some kind of metrics, whether they're important to that user or not, but it gives you something to work with. Instead, what I did is I said, taking in context as to all this information, all the sources provided, and understanding the core business objectives, recommend a landing page for the analyst once they log in. Gemini came back and said, wow, considering, and I'm not kidding, it's like, wow, it's very complimentary, which cracks me up in these tools, by the way, guys. It's like,
I told you feel like you're talking with a person.
I feel like I'm talking to a person, and they really like me. They're very encouraging, and they love all my ideas. So it just makes me feel good about myself the whole time.
They motivate you.
Man, they motivate you for sure. But it
I'm
came.
going to tell after this, I'm going to tell mine. I don't want to interrupt your story. I'm going to tell mine to talk to me a little less friendly.
I
I
think
wanted it to yell at me. I want to see what it does. I'm going to put that in the instruction file or in the agent file. I'll do it in one project. I'll just put like in one of the Copilot instruction files for the project. And I say, you must be mean to me and you must call me bad names.
you're gonna have to let us know what that's like, man.
I'm going to. I will let you know what it's like because that's what I told you. I'm like, thank you. And I'm doing this stuff too. And I just wanted to say, oh, you suck. Why are you being so stupid?
You should have David Goggins voice that.
Yes. There you go. I'm going to use that, but I'm going to use a prompt that says, "Hold me accountable and be rough."
Oh.
So anyway, the outcome that I got for that analyst landing page, guys, it blew my mind. And it was just a recommendation, right? It wasn't the prompts I needed for the proof of concept, but it said, considering the CEO's business objective of being able to increase velocity in terms of how many projects an analyst can happen per week, you don't really need a dashboard with KPI measurements, but you need to gamify the experience. I would recommend a Kanban board that shows them the status for each of their projects based on their flow. And let's show them a velocity meter so they know that they're operating within the new service level agreement they have with the CEO. And then we can even color code some of those cards, and then we can give shortcuts and call out projects that are at risk of violating that new SLA with the CEO. So we're driving the right behavior. So AI gave me that recommendation.
Isn't that insane, though, if you think about it? One,
yeah.
You mentioned documentation. I get far better documentation from the AI than I've seen from any developer. That I'll come out and say, like across the board.
Yeah.
And two, it comes up with ideas and suggestions that you don't even think about.
Yeah.
And it executes them. So it's baffling to me. And I also sit here because I do talk to some that, well, AI, I can do this. So I got to do this. It's going to take me 160 hours to do this. And I'm sitting there, I scratch my head sometimes and said, just use AI because it will even give you ideas that you didn't even think of.
Yes.
That's the time saver right there and can you imagine if you were to do that without AI right now, the amount of time that you'd have to take and translate what they mean, and then you're just based on the fact alone, and you're not thinking of outside the box at that moment, not yet, right?
Not yet.
Until you start speaking to someone, you may need to step away and talk to others. Here, you can have that within an hour. You can have a full conversation, say, hey, have you thought about this and that based on this context? You could be up and running fairly quickly in the amount of time. So that's like your output has significantly increased.
Yeah.
A boatload.
A boatload. Yeah. I had probably 6 hours of effort to get to and that includes interviews with the CEO, some Q&A via email threads, receiving standard operating procedures and documentation. So I gathered all that context all the way to the PRD. So less than a full day's worth of work. Okay.
You don't have to read the SOPs.
No, I mean, I've got context, and I have some Q&A around those SOPs from 2 1-hour sessions in the interview process.
Yeah.
But that was it. And then I think I'm roughly, the team roughly 35 hours into the clickable prototype.
And what would that have been before based on this?
120 hours.
So that you'd had 25%.
At least, guys, at least. What's fascinating to me as well, and this is something that I think people need to be thinking about, is the vibe coding tools that they choose for these high fidelity prototypes. Think about those that have more full tech stacks behind them. So I'll give you an example. Right now, the darling for us right now is Firebase Studio, which is part of the Google Gemini stack. The reason I like that is Gemini as a large language model is already built into that tech stack. So let me give you an example. And this is part of that workflow for this analyst. They have to go out and do web searches to find providers that match the detailed criteria that was collected from the client during the intake process. So using Gemini in combination with Firebase Studio and asking for ideas and suggestions It's like, oh, well, why don't, let's have an agent built into this workflow at various stages. So it will automate, the prototype we've demonstrated successfully at this point will automate the searches in multiple languages, by the way, because they provide service to global companies, to find providers that are best match. And then it scores best match based on client criteria to shorten the cycle that it takes to select the providers that you want to ask for proposals. Then it'll draft your emails, making sure that you don't inadvertently leave out any critical details when you're asking for the proposal. So it takes client intake information, puts that in, and then you can tweak each one of those drafts and then hit send. Okay. What's really crazy is the workflow that we built out in this prototype will also connect to Outlook, and the agent is analyzing the responses from the providers, and you got a communication inbox inside of this portal, and it's using natural language processing through Gemini because it's part of the tech stack. And it's highlighting communications that it believes contains a proposal response. It's also highlighting things that it believes are changes in project scope because the client's responding via an email thread saying, oh, I need X, not real, this number's wrong, that needs to change to this number. So their client intake requirements change.
So you're using Gemini.
You could use AI to ingest that into the next part of your workflow. It's like, man, when I showed this to my client, guys, he was like,
that's my mind every day.
You're using Gemini, so I've been using Notebook LM, so I have Gemini as well, but majority of my deep search, recently I've been using Notebook LM for a couple months now, and it's fantastic because it can create like cards for you, right? Like even like a PowerPoint, I guess, cards. And so is that where you contain all your stuff, or is it just the Gemini chat?
I'm using a sequence of different tools based on where I am, from sales all the way through delivery. So I'm trying to figure out what tools work best. So I will shift things and I will take context and move it from one tool to another because I'm figuring out which ones give me the best output. And
that is the key.
Yeah.
This is one thing you just hit upon is there's not one tool. It goes back with the concept of what we're doing. I listened to the Joe Rogan, Jensen Huang podcast interview. Not everyone listens to Joe Rogan. They may not like him or whatnot, but listen to that interview. He went down this road kind of a little bit about where AI and using the tool, and everyone's talking about where is my job going to be. Listen to that episode and he sums that up. But that's the key right there, is knowing which model to use for which type of output and when to use the tools.
Yeah.
See, this is sort of where I wanted to touch upon as well too, because it's not that tool, just like a carpenter building a house. I equate software to building a house, and because I think it's a good analogy. You don't always need a hammer. You don't always need a screwdriver, but a builder is going to have a hammer, a screwdriver, a paint roller. You have all these tools, and they know when to use the tool because that's the most effective tool for it. And that's where I think the emphasis will need to be versus trying to know all the coding, trying to stay within this one portion of it. Because also, I think where you go back to what you had from the prototype, we're getting into the world where you used to have software engineers. They only know what they know.
Yeah.
And they're going to develop within that box of what they know. Unless they're really energetic and they go out exploring and seeing how things can be done and how people do things, typically they're going to give you estimates on time based on what they know, based on the technology that they know. This right here, to me, opens up because Kris and I had a conversation with a guest the other day. I did some vibe coding. It presents things to you don't even think of.
Yeah.
And you're like, how does it, how? Yeah. Where does this come from? How does it come from? So it's almost like you have peers.
Yeah.
And then the different models will give you different suggestions, using this loosely, right? I'm not bucketing stuff into it to try to be really precise, but it's crazy, mind-numbing, jaw-dropping. I don't even know how to summarize it. I just don't even know Sometimes I think it's reading my mind in some areas.
Yeah, it's so crazy, man. Like one of my principal engineers. So a little tip for the audience here is particularly business leaders. You want to be successful with figuring out which tools to use in throughout your cycle within the business. You got to be willing to carve out some investment, give people permission to fail. Maybe you need some skunkworks projects, things like that. Seriously, because it's and you need to figure out what your knowledge transfer and adoption plan is going to look like once you get those key learnings. We've been on a AI first SDLC modeling effort for the past probably 4 or 5 months, and something I haven't even talked to you guys about. Maybe we talked about it briefly in our last conversation. We just rolled out our own custom ERP for professional service organizations serving Red Hawk first.
Wow.
It was a 90-day turn, 230 engineering hours. Now, when you're a professional services organization like Red Hawk, your resources in that ERP are your staff. And the attributes of each of those resources are their skill sets and in relationship to the tech stacks that they work with, and how they score 1 to 10 in terms of level of expertise against those tech stacks. We already had all of our flows in place and all of our data. So let me just preface it that way. Our data was super clean and ready to go. But now our project managers, our principals, the C-suite, we're all using Flight Deck on a daily basis. It's in production. And we can accurately forecast revenue out over 90 days, generally because the PMs are responsible for working with the clients and understanding what's in the roadmap, what's going to happen each sprint. So we're forecasting that work. But then, resource planning for us is making sure the right resources are available at the right time with the right skill set. So attributes on our client software assets are the tech stacks and the skills required in order to deliver on, providing support, maintenance, and enhancement services. Well, that all just allows us to do skill gap analysis. Like I can tell you at any point in time where there's risk and opportunity in my business. I know who I need to hire next. I know who's overloaded. And we also have all of our time entry data. So we're managing contracts, all this stuff. So this will blow your mind. It blew my mind. 3 weeks ago, my CTO, who's functioning as a product owner on this initiative, he knocks on my office door. He's like, Matt, dude, I hope you're sitting down. I got to show you something. So he brought up the development environment of our ERP, and he said, navigate to the analysis tab, and I did. And he goes, click on a hawk's eye view. I click on it. And it gave me a couple of parameters to select. It's like, select the date range. So I just selected the last 30 days, rolling 30. And then I could select account representative or leaders within the organization to kind of filter down the data set if I wanted to. But I just left it, just tell me everything about the business. It generated an executive report that had different cards for different types of information. So it identifies where we're performing at a high level. It identifies where there's risk. It makes strategic recommendations about areas to focus on based on client volume and work, and where maybe comments, using natural language, right? Where things maybe need to course correct. It blew me away. And I asked Ron, I said, how long did it take to create this? And he said, well, it just occurred to me that you always need this high level CEO level summary of state of the business, right? So I just went in to the tool that we're using, and I said, hey, we need a dashboard for the CEO that kind of gives him the state of the business. He didn't define the cards and how the information was going to be analyzed. Jim and I was already built into this platform, right? And this is no exaggeration. It took him 5 minutes, and that included the time to think of the prompt he was going to use.
That's wild. That's like everyone's dream.
I just laugh. I laugh at that because I just laugh at that. I mean, you hit some key points, and I laugh at it because It's not that it's funny; it's mind blowing, and I laugh at how many businesses are struggling. They think that
Yes.
they think that the individuals, they think the teams can do so much. I don't want to say better in a sense that having the people do it, but they take so much longer. And what I'm seeing in some cases is this technology now allows you to adapt faster, because before it would be to, you told your CTO, if they're the sponsor of the project, I need this dashboard, this is what I need in the dashboard. Okay, we'll go back and develop it. It'd take 3 months to get it done, 2 months to get it done, whatever it may take to get done.
Yeah.
In 3 months, that may no longer be relevant,
Yes.
because the world changes so fast, and it's not just software business; it's other businesses too. And I do want to touch on AI outside of software development, but a few other things with software development I want to touch on too. But that's what, like, some of these, and that's where I kind of laugh, is people don't focus on how can we use these tools to be able to do what you had just mentioned. Give me this hawk's eye view. I like that name, by the way. I know where that comes from. I picked that up, by the way. How you can adapt to how you need to look at the information based on how you see it today, versus having to say, I would like this dashboard, and then you have to turn around and wait, and oh, by the way, there's been an economic shift because tariffs were implemented, or taxes had gone up, or something had gone on, and now all of a sudden, because remember the tariffs, and again, it's not a conversation for or against, I can't tell you how many people I spoke with that said, okay, now we need to factor in and develop something for tariffs into our system.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have stuff like this, for example, you may be able to adapt that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so that's where I kind of laugh at. I think Kris knows why I'm laughing.
Yeah,
but with this, and you being able to put this out there, to kind of consent this back a little bit, where do you see software going? Because now, is software becoming disposable? Because now at that point of, I can sit here, case in point, I talked with somebody this morning. We had, we're going to be having a conversation on something, and they prototyped and whipped up something by the time I finished saying what I think we should do. If we can generate software at that scale, what happens to software?
Software becomes, you said it, disposable. You may have a specific strategic need that software can help you with that you never would have invested in before because of the time and effort required to build that software. But now you can build it so quickly that it's okay. We're going to start to see disposable applications that maybe only have a 90-day shelf life. Maybe less.
Just in time kind of software.
Yes.
That you need for a certain period of time. You perfectly well put. 90 days, it could be 30 days. I just need it for this month, without the massive investment that the old school approach would have been.
Yeah. So for example, where I think opportunity for disposable software maybe comes into play are fast-growing companies on the acquisition track.
Yeah, startups.
Yep. If you're or companies like Red Hawk, for example. So part of our growth strategy is acquisition. We're going to buy other software engineering firms. So if I've got a platform that has all of our way of doing things, and then I can dump in all of their contracts, because if I'm going to buy a software engineering firm, which I've done before, we're buying their assets, we're buying their book of business. Okay, right? So I've already got the individual components. So it wouldn't take much effort at all for us to build a platform that supports the integration of the company we just acquired, to reduce the integration time from, call it 6 months to 9 months to a month. If I could dump in all the client contracts, right? And we already have the agentic workflow that actually, Brad, you'll appreciate this, we can create documentation on existing business applications. We deploy an agent that does that for us, and that agent then hands it off to another agent that identifies the bill of materials and all the CVEs, and then we get detailed actionable reports on how to remediate that software application. So if I can take the contracts and drop them in, and I can connect the repos for all the customers that they're serving into that workflow, then on the other side of that, it's going to tell me strategically, I think it's like another version of a hawk's eye view, where do our team focus their initial efforts to support that integration path? To me, that's a disposable application in the sense that if I'm only going to buy one company, I only need it one time. But I'm willing to make that investment because I know my team can build that probably in a pretty short order. I've already got all the agents and the pieces built out. So integration is a big investment. That's part of an acquisition strategy for any business. So I can see that as being a really good example of a bespoke disposable application. And maybe you repurpose it and spin it back up when you need it.
Yeah. World's change.
I'm geeking out, guys, man. This is too much fun for me.
No. I'm almost speechless in a sense, because I agree with you, and I see so many things. It becomes now, I was going to purchase something the other day to do a task for software, and then I paused for a moment, and now I'm like, it was $48 for a year subscription.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is not a lot of money. I'm just trying to say this is like where it's going, right? It was $48, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can just vibe it.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And it took 4 minutes.
Yeah. There you go.
So that's where I'm saying.
And then it met your needs, and then, okay.
It met my needs. And
move on
again,
to the next.
And I will say, like as Kris and I had in some previous conversations prior to this one, I'm not doing stuff when I do this that's being installed at a customer, or, you know what I'm saying? It's not it's production for my home, for me, for what I need. I'm not haphazardly doing this for an organization. But again, it was that type of thing, is I needed something to do something for a few minutes.
Yep.
And I had to sit back and go, is it $48 that I pay? But I want to vibe it. Whereas before, you would pay the $48 because it would probably have taken me a day or two to replicate what it was doing, or maybe even a lot longer, because if I didn't even know how to do it, probably could have taken me months, because I would have had to learn the stack. I would have had to learn the language. I would have had to learn what it is. So $48 is well worth it. But now you're just like, I need something that does this and it does that.
Only a handful of times, and you're paying a full year subscription when you only need it for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Yes. I need, this was again, it was a probably 1 or 2 time use function.
Yeah.
But that I needed. So it goes to your point. Like, did I really care about certain things? No. Could it have been probably better? Of course. Anytime you develop something, it could always be better. But issue resolved, problem solved in minutes.
And really quick too, Matt, that's a perfect example of use of AI, is that people tend to forget that acquisition and merger usually takes a long time. But if you have AI in between, it's going to expedite that significantly, because it requires less physical person to like do all the work. There's a lot of paperwork around that, right? And a lot of gathering of discovery and stuff like that. If you have agents that will do that for you, it's going to save you a whole lot of time. And that's another thing that I was curious. I have a family friend that's in law. You know, how do you utilize? Could you utilize agents for a lot of the e-discovery kind of thing? And I'm sure they're starting that way, but a lot of these things are going to expedite. Significantly.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, Brad, I think it's important that, and I like how you articulated that some of the things that you're doing, or you're not rolling out into client or production environments, because there are still a lot of cybersecurity concerns around these tools as well.
Absolutely.
You know, so a really critical part of our software development lifecycle is, yes, we're adopting AI first SDLC. That just means that our engineers who are experts are leveraging AI first, as opposed to deciding they're going to write all the syntax.
Correct. And that's why I wanted to preface it that this, in the context of my conversation, it wasn't for somebody else that I was doing it. It was for a task that I had at home, where I had a controlled environment, where I knew what I was doing, in the sense of whatever risks I was taking, which is extremely important, which goes back into that. You can vibe code anything, but you have to be careful if you don't understand what the results are.
Indeed. We are seeing the tools advance pretty quickly. I mentioned Firebase Studio, and something we experienced here just this week is we have dev, staging, production environments, backup routines, et cetera, and this is for our proprietary ERP. And our CTO is ready to release a new feature, and Firebase Studio said, because it detected a CVE in a React library. So it didn't even let him get it out into staging, which was fascinating to me. So we didn't even know that was going to be a new feature. There was no release schedule. There's no promotion around it. It's just all of a sudden the tool all of a sudden it has something new, which is It's the rate of these tools getting more and more mature.
I can't even think
do
about it.
I do like that you brought up the cybersecurity component, because it's going so fast that people just want to use it and see what it can do for them, but they do forget the security aspect of it. I mean, there's been countless times where I have conversations with SMB space,
Yeah.
where their employees are using Chat GPT with their company data, and they don't have any AI policy as a starting point. I mean, even as simple as that should be a good foundation of how to use AI within your organization. And there's been like, oh, we haven't done that yet, but we've got Susie in accounting asking questions about the best approach and then feeding data about their company. I'm like, oh, pretty dangerous, guys.
It happens all the time. You know, it surprises me how few businesses have completed acceptance use policies and training around that. And anybody who thinks that their employees are not using AI, they're kidding themselves. Right. It's happening at every level in the business. So you got to get a handle on that.
What are you telling me, that people aren't using AI? Like you can stop them, or they're not using it, or everyone's just unaware?
Give them the secure pathway. They're going to use it whether you do so or not. So expedite that process.
You have internet access.
Well, they'll use it. It is. It's. Kris brings up the good point with the AI use policy, and you also bring up the point of getting that in motion now, because I would rather have my employees and team members know how to use the tool, understand how to use the tool, instead of just seeing what they hear, like conversations with ours saying, oh, it could create an application for you in minutes. Yeah. Granted, I mean, we all work within the industry. We're leaving out some of the aspects of what we know about software development and about technology and about business. But it does sound, if you hear some of these examples that people put on there, and if for those that may use social media, you have these shorts that like, oh, wow, I did this in 30 seconds. It is important to understand, because like you had mentioned, they're going to use it, even if they copy and paste it on their own somewhere else, not in your work environment. They can do so. Like you can't stop people from doing, or even if they had to type it. Oh, and by the way, did you know you could take a picture and drop that into AI and we'll tell you exactly what that screen says? That's what I'm saying. Like there's so many ways that people can get information. The only way you can stop them from getting information is to not have information.
That's right.
I mean, and that's what it comes down to. Is it's, if you want anybody, and then it's also, you can be more restrictive. And don't get me wrong, security is extremely important,
of course.
But there's a point to where you have to balance security and productivity. Because if you want to be, and that security has to match the level of the information that you have, and then also how do you hinder productivity? Because I see sometimes people go the other way. You get a little too secure, trying to satisfy every edge case, where you have to understand what is the risk of that edge case, and am I willing to accept it? That's the key. Identify the risks. Identify, am I willing to accept that risk? Right. That's a point that some people leave out. So I just want to be clear, because I get a lot of feedback on some of these things when I say stuff. So I have to be very careful to say, I'm not saying you should be haphazard with security. I'm saying be secure, but also understand, is the effort of what you're trying to do worth the productivity that it may suppress?
That's right. Yeah.
And are you willing to accept the risk of not doing something? But like you just said, when it comes to the use of AI, people will use it. People are using it. People aren't nobody's living in a vacuum in 2025.
Even Googling right now has an AI mode. It just summarizes, or even get you an AI mode and start having a conversation with it, doing your research. So, everyone's using it.
That's interesting. But AI is productive outside of software development as well. And because I have talked with others that it's amazing what people do with the AI ecosystem, I call it. I've seen people have it go through all of their emails and generate draft responses, and they just reviewed the draft responses. It's almost like you don't have to do anything anymore. Who types? Like, I'm just getting to the point, like, who types? Because now you can use voice.
I got two great examples, and it's not even related to software engineering. One is, and Kris, you're probably doing something similar since you mentioned Notebook LM.
Yeah.
For sales training in our organization, I created a notebook and dropped in all of the sources I needed, including talk tracks, service offerings, capabilities deck, you name it. And we use that notebook for sales training. And then we have a new opportunity
Yeah.
in the pipeline. My flow looks like this. So, in fact, I've got a first-time appointment with a group this afternoon. And before I meet with them, I'm going to use ChatGPT in a thinking or deep research mode, drop in the URL address to their business. I'm going to drop in a suite of artifacts from Red Hawk's business to drop that in the email thread that includes all the introduction and other artifacts that explains what they're interested in. And it will give me recommendations. It's a sales dossier that I create in ChatGPT. Then I take that sales dossier from ChatGPT, which, by the way, I include LinkedIn profile PDFs of the key people that I'm going to be speaking with that may have not even met yet, right? I drop all that into Notebook LM, and I create a sales-specific opportunity notebook. So when I close this deal, which I hope I will close this deal, then the onboarding process for my team, instead of a written project brief, they go have an experience with that notebook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they can put it in. They can put it in. Run the audio feature, and they've got a podcast that they can interface with and interrupt and ask questions.
Yes.
They come into that next technical discovery meeting dialed in, and this has nothing to do with engineering. This is off the shelf tools in the right order of operation. I mean, these sales dossiers guys are like.
It is amazing.
Crazy. That is crazy.
You can even do mind map, like Notebook LM. They've added that. Infographic will create all that. PowerPoint quizzes. You can do all the things you need.
I love mind maps, by the way. I use Xmind.
Brad,
maybe I'll have to switch over to
Notebook LM, man.
You'll have to show me.
It's stupid.
You will have to show me what you're doing, because maybe I will move over to that. It's tough. There's so many tools. It's tough for me to keep up. I focus most of my time more on the development portion of it. Yeah. Notebook LM sounds like it's more content management simplified. So I have to.
You're controlling your sources, and it's giving you insights on it. So I'll give you a quick example. So I've got another deal in the pipeline right now, and it was an intern who recently got hired full-time in supply chain management, like that's his area, and they need an inventory, like a lower but custom inventory management solution for their shipping yard. Okay. It was intelligent enough for it to identify, based on the LinkedIn profile's background information, it has to be good data, right? So his profile's pretty current, along with the president of the company who joined the meeting, and all the artifacts in my sales dossier. It said, this gentleman's career path is X, Y, and Z, and based on what they're asking you to do, this could be the flagship project that helps launch his career. So it's giving me that level of insight, like that's how important this probably is to that individual based on their career trajectory. I'm like, yeah.
Kris, we have to schedule a demo.
Yeah, reach out to me, guys. I'll take you through a couple of these things. All I'm doing is
I do want to know. Yeah, I'd love to see how you use Notebook LM. I know, we work in at least for me, we work in the Microsoft ecosystem. I do use other products outside of the Copilot world.
Yeah.
I am very impressed with the Gemini and Notebook LM's capabilities, even from a personal perspective of just putting all the things that's in my mind into Notebook LM and then have it deep search and in reference to the things. And then you say, hey, can you create a video for this? That's pros and cons. And it'll like tell me like, what are the pros and cons? And even audio, like you said, a little podcast that will have a conversation. Oh my gosh. And mind map, Brad. Like, yeah, I need you to put this in a mind map as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to see this Notebook LM because I'm just thinking now of a lot of things based on what you're telling me. That the world is changing. It's too fast. It's almost I don't know. It's too fast.
It's fun, man. I tell you what, I was freaking out at one point, like what's going to happen. The industry is going to be heavily impacted and going to lose business. But it's been the opposite. It's been the opposite. We're seeing more and more opportunity, and the pipeline is getting, it's just full of opportunity. Because what's happened for us is in serving that mid-market, the number one reason for customers not making an investment was time and effort and the costs related to doing something to pursue their vision.
Yeah.
They couldn't find what they needed off the shelf. That's when we would be brought into the conversation, right? We still think that buy versus build arguments make sense, right? Go with the Microsoft stack, use ERP, CRM platforms available that are available off the shelf, because they're going to build in AI agents and tools to help you along the way. Custom's not always the right decision. However, when you can't find what you need off the shelf, they would typically turn to a software consultancy like Red Hawk. But by the time we get through the discovery phase, when we put something together in a traditional SDLC, sometimes the ROI wasn't there. The problem wasn't expensive or big enough of a problem for them to make the investment to solve the problem. Well, now the conversation's so different because these bespoke software solutions can be developed in such a compressed timeline and investment that I'm hyper optimistic. Some of the things we're building for folks right now, like our ERP and, the other example I shared with you guys, I'm pumped.
Yes, I think it's just a repeat of my thought, and I'm stuck on this thought now, is something that you touched upon earlier. It's all about the data.
Yes.
I think you and Kris were talking about Notebook LM and how you're using it for data. You're talking about how you crafted an ERP system for yourself that you're using because you had the data. I think it all comes down to having a core data system that you interface with these tools with. You think of the concept of MCP, which is supposed to be a standard interface for you to be able to communicate with external systems or separate systems or however you would like to look at it. It's all going to be a matter of having the data available, because without the data, you can't really do much. You can create some cool little applications for stuff, but if you're looking for a business point of view or even a personal point of view, you need to have the data available for consumption.
Agreed. Quality of data and adherence to standard operating procedures will determine your level of success. 100%.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I think we'll have to. I'm at a loss of words, to be honest with you. With this is just it's stimulating, I guess you can say. But I do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us again on this. I think we will do the same thing. Let's schedule a follow-up in another quarter.
Yeah.
And we'll have some notes, and we'll have to just start thinking of what has happened since December 12th, 2025, and the next day that we schedule it. So all of us will have to keep a log of things that we have witnessed with the advances of AI. And things that came out, and then we'll have to talk about them, and we'll see where we are then, because will MCP exist? Will agents exist? I'm sure they will exist. Excuse me. Will they be the topic of the time when I say exist? So we'll have to see. Yeah. But again, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us again this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Thank you for blowing my mind. I'm sort of speechless. But if anyone would like to contact you to learn a little bit more about AI, learn about Red Hawk and some of the great things that you're doing, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
You can look me up on LinkedIn, Matt Strippelhoff on LinkedIn, and reach out with a connection request, reference this podcast. That'll be my cue to go ahead and accept that invite. Or just check us out at redhawk-tech.com. You can fill out a form there to reach out and schedule time with me as well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you again in about 3 months. I'll talk with you soon.
I always love talking to you guys, man. So love it. Thanks for having me back.
That's fantastic.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you, man.
All right.
See you.
Ciao. Bye.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at mattalino.io MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Mattolino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.